Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about India and the BRICS and how the BRICS are going to start using their own currencies with each other and may create their a currency of their own. Let's begin. The BRICS is an acronym created by the investment banker Jim O'Neill in 2001. It started with just BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. He said that these countries are emerging economies and that they will grow to become the dominant economies in the 21st century, in the later half of the 21st century. And many other economists and financial experts believe the same. And so did the leaders of these countries themselves. Therefore, in 2009, they joined together to form a grouping called the BRICS. They included South Africa in it. In this video, I want to talk about India's relationship with BRICS, what India does in the BRICS, and why India is a part of it. And I also want to talk about the plan to create a basket of currencies for the BRICS countries where they can trade in each other's currencies and create a single currency that they can all use. And these are the two issues I want to talk about. Now, we have to begin by saying that the BRICS is widely derided, especially in the West, where people describe it as a talk shop among apparently incongruent powers and a meaningless investment banking acronym long past its sell by date. I do not agree with that, and many, and I'll explain why India is still a part of this grouping. First, sunk costs. This is a theory propounded by scholars of international relations that say that one of the factors behind the persistence of international institutions is because of sunk costs, efforts expended to set up an institution that cannot be recovered, therefore binding the actors involved in setting it up permanently. BRICS itself remains, while BRICS itself remains an informal institution, the NDB, a multilateral bank, is by definition a rigidly formalized institution. This was created uh, about in 2016, 2015, sometime then, and it lends money to the BRICS countries and to other countries uh, that require development assistance. And it has been helpful for India because many development projects have been funded from this bank. And uh, then India has also, so basically what I'm trying to say, these are not sunk costs. India is getting something out of this. And for example, suppose India decided to pull itself away from that grouping by refusing to attend one of its annual summits. That would cause India to lose its self ascribed role as an emerging powers leader and will directly snub Russia, which has traditionally reposed a lot of interest in the BRICS. Therefore, it would be not unwise for India to leave the BRICS, and there's no reason for it to do so. Now, it is also a safe space for India and China, who have a territorial dispute, trade disputes, and other problems. It's a forum where India and China can work with others to focus on larger goals that they agree upon, such as uh, reform of the IMF and other international financial institutions. The BRICS allows India and China to modulate their rivalry within the setting of a small grouping. This happened during the Doklam standoff of 2017, when both sides remained engaged through BRICS throughout the entirety of the crisis. And if I remember correctly, the an agreement was arrived at in this crisis just before the BRICS summit, which was being hosted by China. So this shows the importance of this grouping for India and China. And even now, with the ongoing Ladakh standoff, it gives Modi and Xi Jinping a forum to talk to each other one on one, like not directly, but on the sides of the summit meetings. So it keeps them in contact with each other, even though bilaterally there have not been any summits and diplomacy has decreased between both countries. And Russia is a friend of both China and India, and it continues to play an important, though discreet, role in bringing both sides to the negotiating table. This happens a lot in BRICS summits. Also, there's an issue of status. India likes to get status on the world stage. As S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, described it, BRICS provides India a transcontinental reach by virtue of Brazil and South Africa's presence. Basically, India can get access to South America and the African continents by working with these two countries. It is also a signaling matter. India is a proudly revisionist power when it comes to the extant structures of international organization, the United Nations system. It continues to maintain that the international system does not recognize the country's economic and political heft and demands top down reform. Even RICS statements, which are Russia, India, China, these joint statements from the past reveal that reform of international multilateral architecture remains a key political issue for the BRICS. So there are a lot of benefits India gets from being part of the BRICS, which is why I disagree with some commentators who say it's unnecessary. India doesn't need to be in it. I disagree with that. And uh, now I'll talk about this currency matter. The BRICS currency is an idea created first by Russia and supported by China that the BRICS countries have to trade in each other's national currencies. This is because Russia was sanctioned by the US and removed from the Western banking system and had its foreign reserves in dollars seized by the US, which is actually a crime. Foreign reserves are a country's property, but the US uh, didn't respect that and stole Russia's dollar reserves. So Russia wants to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and so it presented this idea of the BRICS currency, and the other members of the BRICS have given their ideas about it. I want to discuss them here. Brazil, it has entered a deal with China to trade with China in reals and renminbis. The President Lula da Silva supports de-dollarization, and Brazil still uses dollars. So this trade, the use of reals and renminbis for Brazil will only be with China. It's not going to use this with all countries, and it's still going to be using dollars. However, before he came to office last year, Lula da Silva supported de-dollarization in his previous terms. So we can see he's a bit of an ideologue in this matter. So yeah, he's quite committed to de-dollarization. As for Russia, it does trade with India and China in national currencies. It cannot use dollars and wants a common BRICS currency. So yeah, with India, even before the Ukraine crisis, India sometimes traded with Russia in rupees and rubles, but now it does that exclusively. And China trades with the Russia in yuan and rubles. In fact, yuan has replaced the dollar as the most widely used foreign currency in Russia. Now, this common BRICS currency that Russia has suggested is said to be backed by gold or other metals. This I agree with. I think that currencies should be back to something that has inherent value and it's not just a value given by the government. I don't think that's real sound money. India, as I've said before, it trades with Russian national currency but not with any of the other BRICS currency. It has not made a statement on a BRICS currency. It's, yeah, India doesn't want to say anything. Like, this is because India is a friend of the US and the West in general, and so doesn't want to say anything that could make the US think that India is harming it economically. So, yeah, we have to see. In August, the BRICS summit will be held, and there they'll decide on whether or not to have a single currency. So, until that summit, India won't be saying much on the subject. China, uh, it trades with Brazil and Russia in its national currencies. It also wants a BRICS currency. And for this, I'm not sure China wants neutral BRICS currency or if it wants its currency as the sole currency for BRICS. I think the former is more likely, but I fear that it will, if it can't get a neutral currency that all can use, it will pressurize the other BRICS countries to use the renminbi. South Africa says that it wants alternatives to the dollar, but it has not made any plans yet. Let's talk about de-dollarization itself. Before that, we need to talk about what the dollar as a reserve currency means. It became the official reserve currency of the world in 1944. The decision was made by a delegation from 44 allied countries called the Bretton Woods Agreement. In fact, the US has for long used imposition of sanctions as a tool to achieve foreign policy goals. So, countries that have bad relations with the US, such as Russia and China, oppose dollar hegemony and call for de dollarization. The proponents of de dollarization say that this process would reduce other countries' dependence on the US dollar and the US economy, which could help mitigate the impact of economic and political changes in the US on their own economies. Uh, Also, the currency fluctuations and rate changes of the dollar by if had they countries uh, don't use the dollar as a reserve currency, they won't be affected by these things. And in 2022, the International Monetary Fund noted that the dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves fell below 59% in the final quarter of last year, extending a two-decade decline according to the IMF's currency composition of official foreign exchange reserves data. The decline in the dollar's share has not been accompanied by an increase in the shares of the pound sterling, yen, and euro, but the shift out of dollars has been in two directions: a quarter into the Chinese renminbi and three quarters into the currencies of smaller countries that played a more limited role as reserve currencies. So, what does all this mean? It means basically that the BRICS countries have less confidence in the dollar and are willing to move away from it, but all of them are not on the same page of what exactly to replace the dollar with. Russia and China want a single currency for the entire BRICS. India so far has agreed to do use its national currency for trade with Russia and China, but hasn't said anything to Brazil or South Africa, and has been silent on single reserve currency. And Brazil has also agreed to only do trade with China in renminbi, and I'm not sure if they're trading with Russian rubles. I can't say that for sure. And South Africa has said that they support de-dollarization but haven't been specific about what they want. Mind you, they are hosting the summit for this year's, and so I expect that they will come out with their own plan, which they will use to guide the other countries. So, what I think is best for India is that it should trade with countries in rupees and their foreign currencies. This will make its trade impervious to the economic problems and of the dollar. But India still needs dollars. It can't let them go. It has to use them for most of its trade. Most countries still recognize the dollar as their reserve currencies. So I think India will be very slow to de-dollarize, but it will happen. I don't think it's inevitable, but I don't think India is going to accept a single reserved currency. I think that that would be bad for India because the BRICS is economically dominated by China, and because India has a bad relationship with China, being economically dependent on them would be not suited to India's interests. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to accept the single reserve currency, but I might be wrong. All that matters is what happens in August in the summit. So, yeah, I think that so far India has taken a right stance, but we'll see what happens. If please give your feedback for this video in the comment section. If you want to see other videos about Indian nationalism in general, click here. If you want to see my previous video, click here. If you want to see the sources I use for this video, click the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.